topic is effects of hunting. First of all, do any of you guys go sport hunting? No? Alright, well, shame on you, shame on you. So my main claim is sport hunting is cruel and unnecessary. So the 3 points I'll be going over today is 1, hunting brings about negative effects upon the environment, and 2, overpopulation of certain species can be controlled without hunting, and 3, many animals are being hunted to near extinction. So back to my first point, hunting brings about negative effects upon the environment. So basically when hunters leave their campsites, sometimes they leave litter, and that kind of affects the animals negatively. So things like glass can be left over, like broken pieces, and that could kind of cut the feet of certain animals. And then things like empty jars, animals can get their heads stuck in. And then other candy bar wrappers or anything small animals can get, they can choke stuff on stuff like that. And it also disrupts migration and hibernation of animals. So when an animal goes into hibernation and a hunter kills them or scares them away, it kind of disrupts their hibernation cycle, and it kind of disrupts their, basically the way they live. And it also affects the biosphere, and according to the PETA, since wildlife is directly related to the biosphere, it'll affect the environment around it, and it'll throw off the natural predation and population growth. And that brings me to my second point, that overpopulation of certain species can be controlled without hunting. So when hunters hunt, they don't really act like the natural predators. They actually go for the stronger animals rather than the weaker ones. So that goes back to me saying that it disrupts the natural order and the biosphere. Hunters also artificially increase deer population. And by doing that, they do something called clear cutting, which is they cut trees uniformly in a certain area. And according to the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, people purchasing hunting licenses helped fund the deer harvest. And by doing this, it actually encourages hunters to hunt more. And then overpopulated areas will naturally die down without the hunters hunting the animals down. Basically, it's natural for the weaker animals to die and the stronger ones to live, so it's basically survival of the fittest. And then to my third point, many animals are being hunted to near extinction. So according to Alex Sartorsky from Hunter Course, I'm gonna name 10 animals that are near extinction. Woolly mammoths, Caspian tigers, Tasmanian tigers, dodos, passenger pigeons, polar bears, musk ox, Mediterranean monk seals, American crocodiles, flying foxes, which are bats, not foxes, and great white sharks. And also one thing that's related to the animal endangerment is wildlife trade. So wildlife trade is basically when people sell or exchange animal and plant resources. So the reason why it's a huge factor to the threat of the species survival is that, according to the WWF, population of species on Earth declined by an average of 40% between 1970 to the 2000s. And this is, it's been well publicized in the case of tigers, rhinoceros, elephants, and others. And why I mention wildlife trade is because people overexploit it. They overexploit the trading system. So basically they want to hunt more for desired needs and more trading, which is why the survival of certain species are endangered. And then the last thing I would like to mention is poaching, which is illegal hunting or capturing of wild animals. And one great example of this is the Canadian seal hunt. And according to the PETA, this event goes on every year. So basically the Canadian government allows hunters to bludgeon to death baby seals with, it's called haka picks. They're basically like these huge wooden clubs with like metal hooks at the end. And they basically bludgeon to death seals to get their skins all the other stuff, and they basically leave the carcass just to like rot, or they dump them in the water. And yeah, overall, in conclusion, I think hunting or sport hunting should be well, not banned, but actually, yeah, banned, and it should be unnecessary and it should be only to a certain extent. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for your time.
All right, Eddie, you've got like 3 or 4 different propositions in the speech, and you need to pick one and focus on it. The cruel issue is really more a value argument. The question about whether it's necessary or whether it produces any harmful consequences, those would be your claims of fact that you want to be focusing on. And I think there's an argument to be made that there might in fact be harmful consequences, but you're going to have to develop a lot more of an argument than some of the things that you presented here. You did lay out the secondary points at the beginning of the speech, although you seem to be rushing through them. When you got to that first point, the only proof you had were hypotheticals, and to be honest, I didn't hear any of it being related to hunting. All the crap that people leave behind, there's nothing that says it's hunters that leave this behind. There's a world full of people that go out in the wilderness for a variety of purposes that have nothing to do with hunting, that might be leaving their bottles, their candy wrappers, their assorted whatever that is causing these problems. So I think that that's a huge stretch on your part. I would be very careful about citing testimony from PETA. They are an advocacy group that has some pretty extreme views, and I think the extremity of their views suggests a location where there might be some criticism of information that they present. I think you're better off trying to get information from more mainstream groups. The 2 PETA quotes that you had, though, were pretty abstract anyway, so I'm not sure that they helped you that much. You do explain a couple of ideas and concepts. I'm not exactly sure that allowing all the animals to starve to death is automatically superior to hunting them. Now, you don't talk about what any of the regulations and rules are for most of the hunting that you are describing in the one place. That's mostly, for instance, deer populations, that sort of thing. It's a little bit strange when you're talking about tigers and polar bears and all those other sorts of things, which are largely protected and which you mentioned at the end are being poached, and that's the bigger source of the problem. So it's poaching in this particular case as opposed to hunting, because legitimate hunters they don't engage in the poaching process. And I think you'd find that the bigger source of the problem is not a desire by hunters to have trophies on the wall. It's to fill that wildlife trade that you're talking about, where people, the world's full of people that think polar bear testicles or tiger penises or stuff like that is some miracle medicine that's going to give them, solve their erectile dysfunction or reduce their aging or cure their cancer. And those people are, that's a different issue entirely from the hunting thing. I think that's a little bit of a stretch there. You only had the 3 citations, 2 from PETA, and well, you did have a 4th quote also. You did identify one person and the Wildlife Federation. So I think that's okay. I'll tell you what, though, you mentioned 10 animals near extinction. If there are woolly mammoths still alive, I would be really surprised. I think they're gone and have been for a number of years. All right, thank you.